this, and also his hair and his mustache were immaculate in, in this movie.
Oh yeah.
From somebody who can't grow facial hair at all without looking like I just have dirt on my face, all these mustaches were real, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! How do these dudes they were all awesome mustaches.
Soundstripe.
And welcome in another episode of Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast where if you're like us and you miss the days of packed movie theaters and movie stores, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Caleb Suggs. Joining me is one of my co-hosts, Dakota Lowry.
What's up, everybody?
Warnie Ferguson.
Why, Caleb? If you weren't my friend, I just don't think I could bear it.
Messed up on your quote there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
This week, in honor of the now late Val Kilmer, we are doing Tombstone, Dakota's mother's favorite movie that he's never seen.
Yeah, look, to be in my defense, I haven't seen a lot of movies, so it's not really that surprising.
I know, but I feel like you have to see your parents' movie. Like, how do you go to your whole life and not see your parent? Like, there's no way. My dad was trying to show me Halloween when I was 6 years old.
She showed me Halloween. I actually don't know why in the world I never saw this. I just never did.
I don't think my dad had a specific movie that he sat down and watched with us. I mean, now, because again, the man was Sunday nights. I could tell you what's happened Sunday nights in the Ferguson household. One, we were watching 60 Minutes. Then after that, it was 2 hours of nature programs. So that was Sunday nights in the Ferguson household. You could take it to the bank. I got the National Geographic sound stuck in my head, so I know I can rip that off in a heartbeat.
Dad's favorite movie was Halloween. Mom's favorite movie was Twister. I definitely watched those.
There you go.
But this week we are doing Tombstone, 1993's Tombstone. Second Western movie we're doing. Third if you count Zorro, which I don't really count as a Western.
No, third. We have Silverado, Young Guns, and then
I forgot about Young Guns. I forgot we did Young Guns. So a third Western movie, and fourth if you count Zorro, which again I don't.
I don't know I don't even know what to classify that as.
I put it as a swashbuckler. I put it under an adventure.
Yeah, it's adventure action. Yeah. Old-timey action. You want?
Yeah, I guess.
But Tombstone, look, it's funny we've done two Westerns so far. They were both 80s Westerns, but 90s is really when you had a ton of Westerns come out. Dances with Wolves. You had the Wyatt Earp movie that came out the year after this. Unforgiven.
Yeah.
What's another one I'm missing?
Well, you have The Quick and the Dead. It started to roll. I thought there was another Clint Eastwood one that in there other than.
I'm sure there was.
I know you had Pale Rider, but that was in the 80s, though, I think. But, that's the interesting thing you talked about, the other Wyatt Earp movie. Just the beginnings of Tombstone is just, things legends that are made of, because the writer of this movie was the writer of Dances with Wolves. And so he and Kevin Costner were tied into Tombstone, but Kevin Costner didn't like how Tombstone was centered on everybody and not Wyatt Earp. So then Costner said deuces, and so Costner left Tombstone. So he was originally supposed to be in Tombstone, but then he left, and then they ended up getting Kurt Russell. And so also this writer was his first time being a director. He was fired after a week because he was already back in production. And a man close to your heart, Caleb, the director of Rambo and Rambo 2 and Cobra and some of the Rocky films. No, I don't know if it's Rocky films, but the Rambo films ends up being the director, even though rumor is that it was actually Kurt Russell that was the director, and that Kurt Russell called Sylvester Stallone and asked him basically for who would be a good ghost director, and Sylvester Stallone mentioned this guy because, well, he was directing Rambo 2, which evidently Sylvester Stallone really directed. So again, all that kind of funky stuff went on with Tombstone, but it is funny that again, originally Kevin Costner was scheduled to be in Tombstone.
Well, with all the close up heroic shots you get of Kurt Russell, it does not shock me in the least bit if he was directing this. And also, his hair and his mustache were immaculate in, in this movie.
From somebody who can't grow facial hair at all without looking like I just have dirt on my face, all these mustaches were real, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! How do these dudes they were all awesome mustaches.
Great mustaches. And Sam Elliott has not changed one bit in the last 30 years, man. I take that back. The only thing that's changed is his hair has changed from dark gray to white in the last 30 years.
I'm pretty sure he was born with that mustache. He came out the womb with the mustache already.
I think out of all of them, he had the best mustache. So
I don't know. Kurt Russell's in this one was pretty dang good. I feel like he definitely had a team that was grooming that between takes every single time. You look at it. Wyatt Earp, which came out the year after this, is definitely, I would say, a more realistic, historically accurate telling of this story, whereas Tombstone is not very historically accurate, but man, it's got the ensemble star cast, and it from the very get-go it has you hooked, and it delivers all the action and everything that you want in a Hollywood movie. Again, maybe not the most historically accurate, but it's fun and exciting from the very beginning.
Well, I think what the movie Wyatt Earp suffered from being too soon. If it was nowadays, where you're talking about on Netflix 6 episodes, because I think they probably could have searched it. Could have gone a lot longer with it, because again, Wyatt Earp went from like teenager to OK Corral, and it also focused in on a lot of the relationships. So it was a completely different vibe altogether, because it was the story of Wyatt Earp. This was I wouldn't call this. It is a Wyatt Earp story, but again, you got a lot of attention for the secondary players in this movie.
This cast is star-studded, from even all the way down to the short cameo you get from Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh my goodness, that may be one of my favorite parts of the movie, is from the beginning of when Wyatt goes into the Oriental, or I think that's what the name of the casino was, or the bar was. You have Billy Bob Thornton. Then they go out, and they have the rekindling of the love affair between Wyatt and Doc, which again, that's basically what that is. And then you have, while they're talking, you have Billy Bob Thornton just sitting in the background. That was classic. But yeah, you're right. Not everybody. There were 5 guys to me that were hitting 100 miles an hour. You had Kurt Russell with Wyatt Earp. You had Val Kilmer with Doc Holliday. You had Michael Biehn with Johnny Ringo. I think Powers Boothe with Curly Bill. And then finally, I think Stephen Lang with Ike Clanton. I think those 5, everybody else was kind of but those 5, they came out of the bullpen and they were throwing 100 miles an hour, and I liked everything about all 5 of those guys.
I was going to give Dakota a chance to speak.
I
always feel bad because I'm like, we never give him a chance to speak, and then I gave him a chance, and he's just like, oh.
He's part mute.
Yeah. No, really, taking that this was the first time that I'd seen this movie, as I find myself saying a lot on this podcast, it really caught my attention pretty early on. I never really, even as a kid, I never really was into the Westerns or anything like that. But, this, like you said, it kind of picked my attention up pretty quickly. I thought really a lot of the the acting was great. There really wasn't a time, because I mean, even in some of these older movies, when you get bad Southern accents and things like that, you kind of cringe a little bit. But I really didn't have that in this movie. There wasn't a time where I was just like, yeah, that could have been a bit better. There was just a lot of times throughout this entire movie, it was just purely sit back and kind of enjoy it, and didn't really think to. There wasn't a lot for me to stop and just complain about.
Well, and we have to talk about basically the reason that we're doing this movie. Val Kilmer in this, and you could go through, like you said, Ernie. You could pick out a bunch of different people that had great acting chops in this movie, but Val Kilmer, his performance it's one of those. It's like Heath Ledger with the Joker. It's just one of those that I point out and like it was perfect. And every time he's on the screen, he commands your attention. Just from his mannerisms, the quotes he says. I mean, Val isn't a great actor, but this is, in my opinion, his best performance, and it's not even close. I don't even think there's a close second.
I would put him in The Doors up there with him as Jim Morrison. Again, it's different, but that's one thing about Val Kilmer is that, okay, so this is probably a hot take. I don't think Val Kilmer's a great leading man.
No, he's the ultimate. He's the ultimate supporting actor.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is a leading man. I don't think is very good, but you let Brad Pitt be second or third, that man gets after it. And that's the same thing with Val Kilmer too. Like, I mean, in Top Gun, he was more interesting than Tom Cruise was, and then in Heat. I mean, if you don't get overshadowed by De Niro and by Pacino, then you've done something, So but there's a lot of the stuff. I enjoyed The Saint, but I don't think it was a particularly great movie. Again, I think The Doors. I think he did a good job. I just didn't like the movie per se. I'm not a big Oliver Stone guy either, but I think that's one of those things where he is one of those guys that can play a number 2 and number 3 and can just blow it out of the water.
I agreed with everything you said there, except for Brad Pitt is not a good leading man.
Well, that was where you. Well, tell me what movie.
I'm not going to get in because then I have to start thinking Brad Pitt movies, and then we're just going to get completely waylaid. But no, I agreed with everything else you said. I mean, he's not. When I think of Val Kilmer's movies, the ones that pop up are Tombstone, are Top Gun, are Heat, the ones where he's not the leading man, but he does a fantastic job elevating a side character to the point to where you think it's a main character.
And one thing about this, if this movie is out a year earlier, Val Kilmer probably wins an Academy Award, but he doesn't even get nominated, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, you have Tommy Lee Jones in the Fugitive. You have Leonardo DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. If you haven't seen that, the performance that DiCaprio plays on, he plays like a mentally handicapped kid, and he's just fantastic in that. Ralph Fiennes in Schindler's List, John Malkovich in The Line of Fire, and Pete Postlethwaite in The Name of the Father. I would remove John Malkovich and put Val Kilmer in there. But again, this is probably one of the most stacked supporting actor Academy Awards they're out there. And and for him to have this performance, I don't understand why he wasn't even nominated. I mean, nowadays where they nominate like 19 people for one award, he would have easily been in it. But to me, again, the role that Val Kilmer played in this, and the way he portrayed, the way he acted, and the way everybody else on screen kind of played the straight man, for him to be able to do that outrageous Georgia, upper class accent, just his body movements too, and the way he acted, it was just, I think people on set knew that Val Kilmer was onto something there too.
Yeah, it took me 10 minutes to convince Kamei that was Val Kilmer on screen.
Why did she think it wasn't?
I think it's because every time she thinks of Val Kilmer, she's thinking of Iceman with the blonde hair and everything, and
the mustache and
the mustache and hair
green.
Change. Yeah.
I don't. Maybe it's just the original Top Gun is I mean, it's good, but it's not. I think it's a little bit overrated the way people can talk about it. So I just every time I think about Kilmer, I really don't think of Top Gun that much. But
Well,
maybe
I
that's
think it's
just
like
me.
I think it's like anything else. Whenever you go back, and that's one thing I've figured out since we've started doing this is going back and watching movies. Is it nostalgia that I liked, or was it the movie or things of that nature that I liked? And that's like this movie. I love this movie, but the movie to me does have some issues a little bit. One, it was way too long. No, well, not way too long. It was too long. I won't say way too long, but
Yeah, I don't think way too long would be fair.
no, but like they could probably cut about 10 to 15 minutes off of it, and most of it. And this,
I know exactly what I would cut too.
Well, I mean, the theater scene. One, you could cut a lot of that, not all of it, but you get the balcony scene where that mayor comes and talks to him, and and Wyatt says no, but do we need his wife and do we need the actress Josephine? To me, and again, in a very heterosexual way, the love story is between Doc and Wyatt. Like whenever Doc first shows up and Wyatt sees him and says, and you could see the pure joy in Wyatt's face that his friend Doc showed up. That's where I think, again, they probably could have cut some things. And that may also have to do with having 2 and maybe 3 directors also.
Yeah, it felt long. And I remember because I remember that I think it was right after the OK Corral shootout, maybe, that it happened, that I was like, oh, well, we're probably getting pretty close to the end. Like, you're probably about to get to the big fight. And then I paused and was like, oh, man, there's still like another 50 minutes left in this movie. Like, there's still a good bit left in here, It's just, I think that was one of my, I know I said I didn't have a lot to complain about in this movie, but that was one of my biggest complaints in it, was that it was just, it kind of dragged in a few scenes.
If you'd cut everything that Wyatt and Josephine, like all their scene, especially the one where they're horseback riding and doing the picnic, if you just cut that scene, then you would have way, that's the fat you need to trim, because every time their whole relationship stuff is just boring. It's not intriguing at all. It's like Ernie said, people, the real relationship is between Wyatt and Doc, and nobody. I didn't care at all about relationship with Josephine.
But it's historically accurate.
Well, I mean, okay. So here's the crazy thing about Josephine is with her time with Wyatt Earp in real life, she spent a ton of effort of trying to wipe out Maddie, like from lore, from everything. So she kept on putting her name out there as she was with Wyatt in a lot of this stuff and things of that nature. So she literally was trying to erase Maddie out from history, and which I thought was.
So, but I thought his first wife died like a year after.
She did, but that's what. Yeah,
Josephine's third on the list.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and Maddie died of an overdose, which, again, you keep on showing us that she's hooked on laudanum, but there's the only payoff to that is the narrator
in the after credits.
Yeah. I mean, having her so you don't feel like Wyatt's a bad guy because he's cheating on her because she died. But why not have her? I mean, we already know this is not historically accurate since Johnny Ringo committed suicide. He didn't get killed by Doc Holliday, So why not have Maddie die? After the brothers get shot, have Maddie die somewhere around that time, so literally Wyatt has nothing holding him down at all, and just let him go buck. That's
just don't bring her.
Don't mention any of the wives.
The only reason that I think that Josephine was in there, or what? Not Josephine, but his wife was in there, was just for them to have a reason for him to not be with Josephine sooner.
Yeah.
Honestly, there really was no other point. There was no if you had removed her from the movie, other than the fact that he wouldn't cheat on his wife, there really is no reason to have her in the movie.
I think the trope of movies at this time, where all movies have to have love interests, I think that's one of those things that kind of leads to this, you know. Also, you know, towards the end, the way the movie ended seemed like it was very haphazard. Like it didn't flow to me. I mean, to me, what in my mind, what way I see it is, you have the railroad scene, you know. So now we're hunting. We get to the Curly Bill in the river scene. They kill that. Then I think they should be going on to then hunt down or have the interaction not too much longer after that with Johnny Ringo and Doc Holiday, and then go to the sanatorium with. But it seemed like it bounced all over the place. And again, it sounds like I'm cracking on the movie, but I really liked it. But there's just some of these little things like towards the end just seemed like it was all over the place, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Tombstone is a 1993 American Western film directed by George P. Cosmatos, written by Kevin Jarre, and starring Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer, with Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton, Powers Boothe, Michael Biehn, and Dana Delaney in supporting roles, and narration by Robert Mitchum. The film is loosely based on real events that took place in the 1980s in southeast Arizona, including the gunfight at the OK Corral and the Earp Vendetta ride. It depicts several Western outlaws and lawmen such as Wyatt Earp, William Brocus, and Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday. Tombstone was released on December 25th, 1993. It grossed $73.2 million on a budget of $25 million, and I believe it has a Rotten Tomato score of 75%, right?
Correct.
All right, so we spent way longer than we normally do on the opening, so I guess we'll probably just go ahead and go right into the movie. So in 1879, members of an outlaw gang known to wear red sashes called the Cowboys, led by Curly Bill is it Brocus? Is that how you say it?
Brocious, I think.
Brocious, because I don't even remember them saying it. It was always Curly Bill. Curly Bill Brocious ride into a Mexican town and interrupt a local police officer's wedding. They then proceed to massacre the assembled policemen in retribution for killing two of their fellow gang members. Shortly before being shot, a local priest warns them that their acts of murder and savagery will be avenged, referring to the biblical four horsemen of the apocalypse. So the film actually opens with the old-timey, black and white film type reel, kind of explaining, what's going on and stuff, giving it the allure, even though it's not very historically accurate, that this is a historically accurate film. But then it opens up. Great scenery, by the way. But for a budget of $25 million, this movie looks visually very appealing and still holds up, in my opinion. So what are we now? 30 years later? Yeah, over 30 years later.
Over 32.
But so then we go quickly pan to this, and we get to, is before we even get to see Wyatt Earp or anything, we see the Cowboys, and you see, you see Curly Bill with those boots that have the playing cards on there. But you see how what's the word I'm looking for? Merciless they are. I mean, they take out everybody, and then let's say they just take the bride into the church and shoot her. Let's not hope they didn't do anything else. But I mean, they paint themselves as very serious and very merciless early on.
But they don't kill a woman on screen the whole movie, do they?
I don't know. I'd have to.
No. There's the implication with the bride, and then there's the implication with that one lady when the Cowboys come driving through the middle of the town of Tombstone, who's got the slash on her face. That I guess there's that implication that maybe the Cowboys did. No, not. And then the mayor's wife was killed off screen also. So I don't think.
So at least we know we have morals in these directors.
Well, here's one thing. Since we've done 3 Westerns, we had Silverado, which I don't remember any blood whatsoever in that movie. You had Young Guns, where, we had some blood. But then you have this movie, Tombstone. There was a lot more blood. Now, again, we're not talking about like today's where it's just everything is bloody all over those. But that was something that you saw a little bit different from this movie too, to start the increase of more bloodshed that we start to see. And also I think it's funny the way this movie starts. especially if you have seen the movie Three Amigos. If you have not seen the movie Three Amigos with Chevy Chase, Martin Short, and Steve Martin, this is the exact same way that the Three Amigos starts, but as a comedy, not as this western. So I thought it was very funny coming into this movie, know that I've seen the Three Amigos, and I was like, oh, this looks very, very familiar. But you also see the setup of Johnny Ringo too, which if it wasn't for Val Kilmer, Michael Biehn would be glorified. He would be lauded as the breakout, I think, of this movie. But Val Kilmer overshadowed everybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, we didn't even really talk about him. I mean, but this is part of his holy trinity of movies. You know, you put Terminator, Aliens, and then this, and of course he had some other ones. But these are like the three big ones that he did. But this is, I would say, by far his best performance of the three. I would think.
I think so. Yeah.
Not necessarily saying it's the better movie of the three, but his performance, as Johnny Ringo is, left me wanting more. Really, I thought he could have been on the screen more. You take away the time with Josephine in the flower meadow and putting some more Johnny Ringo in, it would probably make the movie even better.
Give me more interaction with him and Val Kilmer, because every time they touched the screen together, whether it was in the saloon, whether it was in the street, whether it was at the ending, the two of them played off each other really, really well. Crickets.
Yeah, I think
I'm trying to give him time to speak, and he's not taking it.
Look, I know I really did like it, especially in this opening scene with the four horsemen, which I haven't looked into the whole biblical aspect of this. You know, I know why they did it to play into the movie, but I love the fact that they bring this up and that they're like, oh no, he's just talking crazy. You know, he's just talking about some horses from the Bible that nobody really knows about. But then that little payout with it later on. With Wyatt Earp. I really love the setup of this. I love the introduction of the characters about Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp with the narrator in the beginning. To me, like, it was just a really cool way to introduce not only the good guys, but the villains as well. And I really kind of like the fact that they introduced the bad guys first,
Yeah,
at least on screen.
That is a good setup. Yeah, that is a good setup to know who you're about to pit Wyatt Earp up against, because that Wyatt Earp is in this, but now you establish them as being absolutely horrible people too.
Yeah.
Well, Wyatt Earp, a retired peace officer with a notable reputation, reunites with his brothers Virgil and Morgan in Tucson, Arizona, where they venture on toward Tombstone to settle down. There they encounter Wyatt's longtime friend Doc Holliday, who is seeking relief in the dry climate from his worsening tuberculosis. Josephine Marcus and Mr. Fabian are also newly arrived with a traveling theater troupe. Meanwhile, Wyatt's common-law wife, Maddie Blaylock, is becoming dependent on... How do you say that?
Loudum.
Opioids.
Yeah. Wyatt and his brothers begin to profit from a stake in gambling emporium and saloon when they have their first encounter with the cowboys. So they did a good job of introducing us to Wyatt and the brothers first, because when they introduced Val as Doc Holliday, it immediately, again, like I said earlier, he immediately commands your attention and owns the screen. Just everything about him, with the things he would say about, you did the quote earlier about how I just couldn't imagine if you're not my friend, but he always talks about the daisy, you're no daisy.
Yeah, you're no daisy, yeah.
And then everything about him, again, is just his character is so good. But to go back to the Wyatt and the brothers, man, he drills early on that he is not going to be a peace officer anymore. So foreshadowing very quickly in the movie.
Yeah, over and over. It also showed getting off the plane. Showed his
getting off the plane. Is that what you said?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. This is what happens when you get old. You forget things. Getting off the train is you see his sense of justice too. When the guy starts hitting the horse, and he comes off and hits the guy back and basically says, I mean, how you like that? So there is a sense of, you have this sense of justice for him, and then also the quote that the guy says that about like the rich men with a guilty conscience. He said, "So I already have the guilty conscience. Said I'm just here to get rich." So again, that was kind of his idea. Was to we're not doing the law business. We're coming here to get rich. Which I mean they do, and they do early. Go get after that.
Yeah, and I love the way that they kind of establish this group of 4 or 5 men here in the town where he just kind of walks in and he's like, "Hey, yeah, I think you're in my chair," and it proceeds to slap him 5 or 6 times, and
skin that smoke wagon.
That whole Billy Bob Thornton cameo, that was all ad-libbed. Everything he said was like ad-libbed. It was not in the script. They just told him to go out there and just ad-lib whatever. So all the stuff that he's saying before, like when he's in the background and he's yelling at the other people, that's just stuff that he's come up with.
Those are like, my brother has used the blow you up the Wildcats backside at me over again. But the one thing that I say over and over again, edited a little bit, I said, he said, "This is like playing cards with my sister's kids, you nerve-wracking sons of guns." That's a quote that flows out at school constantly with this. And just, again, Billy Bob Thornton was great. And then the intensity that Kurt Russell brings in when he gets him out of the chair, there is a switch that goes off there in his facial features, and he said, "You're scared." He said, "You're dang right, you're scared." And he dares him to smoke skin that smoke wagon, and said, he said, "Are you just going to stand there and bleed?" And then he sends him out, and he tells, "Hey, 25% sounds about right," and he's off to the races.
Did anybody else have to look up what being healed meant in Western terms? Being healed.
What?
Healed. HEELED. He says,
"Oh, that's the guns." Yeah,
it means not having a gun, not carrying a gun.
Yeah, heals.
Being healed means carrying a gun or something. I don't.
Yeah, the heel of the gun is the grip of the gun, I believe. So that's what.
Yeah, because Billy Bob Thornton's character says something about coming in here and not even healed. He's like, "I don't have to be healed to take care of you." But I think you look at Wyatt Earp and. Kurt Russell does a very good job in this movie. It's overshadowed some by Val Kilmer, understandably, but he still does a very good job. But you have two very dangerous characters in Wyatt and Doc Holliday, but that dangerousness comes across in different ways. Kurt Russell's character is more, Wyatt Earp's more intense, whereas Doc Holliday has that more.
It's a wild card. You don't know what he's going to do. He's dangerous, but you don't know if he's joking, if he's serious. You don't know how far he's going to take things. It almost seems like sober Doc Holliday is more dangerous than drunk Doc Holliday was.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what. But I really liked how they introduced all of them, and they kind of established their dominance in the town early. Kind of like before the Cowboys, the introduction to the Cowboys, and they just I love that the confidence that they walk into with, and how they're looking, into the town,
And you see the internal battle that's going to happen, because he denied at the Wyatt denied at the railroad tracks. He denied right outside the casino. The next scene, when they go into the theater, he denies again of being a lawman. So again, he has denied and denied and denied that over and over again. They are there to make money, and you see that's going to be the internal conflict that's going to happen with Wyatt Earp throughout this movie. I know what I was. I know how I was when I was a lawman. I don't want to go back there. I just want to live peacefully here, but then he gets it's almost like a mafia movie. He gets sucked back in later on.
I did want to add, and I don't know for sure because I'm not a huge I've seen a bunch of Westerns, but I don't think about them a lot. did it feel like the town was definitely more like I feel like most westerns, the towns that they're in are kind of like small. I don't know this. I mean, this for a western maybe this town. I mean, it seemed like it was a very big, which they talk about it, growing to they say it's going to be as big as San Francisco, but it did really feel like the town was big and a lot going on for an old western town.
Well, and now they talk about the fact that it's they discovered silver there, and that's the reason that everybody was moving there is because it was a mining town, and so a lot of people were moving there because of the assumably the gold.
No, I know. I mean, I know why there's a bunch of people there. I'm just saying I feel like compared to other westerns,
comparatively to other movies,
this town seems much bigger and a lot more going on than
how else are you going to explain 100 cowboys coming in?
I could be wrong. But
well, I mean, you look again. We compare to the 3 movies that we've seen that are westerns. Silverado had 2 streets, I think 2 streets in it, and then we look at Young Guns. I think it had whatever they were in town. It was just basically one street. So again, I think you're right. I think for the most part, these towns that are in the middle of nowhere. They're dependent on being a cow town, being a silver town, being a railroad town, so just from what we've seen, Tombstone does look like a big town, a more haughty toddy kind of town also, just the way it was dressed up, like Biehn talking about a dog track, and that would show that we're really metropolitan. Again, this idea, the ideas of grandeur that these people have running through them.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. I agree.
Well, then what that leads us to the whole theater scene, which as Ernie mentioned, probably could have been cut down a little bit, but that just kind of leads more into what you really want to see, which is Wyatt and his brothers and Doc having their first encounter with the Cowboys. Which is definitely a good scene. You get Curly Bill coming in there, trying to, he's assert his authority. This is my town type of thing. And you have Wyatt playing that character. Like, look, man, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm just here to make my money. But obviously, the big draw though is seeing Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday, their first encounter on the screen. Him with the gun, and then Doc with the cup. It makes for a great scene.
But this is also Ike's first scene too. This Kansas law dog, say you savvy, and that's when Curly Bill says, "Shut up." So basically, he just won $500 from us, tell him to shut up. But that's where anytime you see Ike, Ike is one of the guys throughout the whole entire movie. He's going to get his. He's going to get his. He's going to get his, and he doesn't get his. And it's one of those most unsatisfying parts of a movie that I've ever seen, that this guy should have been mowed down like multiple times. And you're just like, come on, give that to me. But so again, you get that interaction with Ike, but then again, here is our first Ringo and Doc, both of them speaking Latin, both of them doing all that kind of stuff. And again, that's why I was thinking a drunk Doc is a safer Doc, because he was just like, okay, we're just going to do this, and I thought,
we're going to make
and having that little chuckle by Johnny Ringo, that was still disconcerting also, because you're like, he just looks at me and just goes, it's like both of them know it's not now, but it's going to happen between us. I did enjoy that interaction between the two of them.
Yeah, once again, foreshadowing to their upcoming duel at the end.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and it comes to, and of course, we'll talk about this later, but, I think you have Kurt Russell, who's supposed to be the main star of the movie, which he is, and then you have Curly Bill, which is the leader of the cowboy gang. But what you want to see in the end is Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo, who are both these, side men to each of the supposed stars.
Yeah, I remember getting to the end of the movie and them talking about Ringo, and I'm just like, I'm sitting there thinking like, but I thought Curly Bill was the leader of all of this, and I was it was a little confusing as you got to the end, closer to the end, but
As tensions rise, Wyatt is pressured to help rid the town of the cowboys, though he is no longer a lawman. After a visit to an opium den, Curly Bill begins shooting erratically in the street. Marshal Fred Wyatt attempts to disarm him, only to be shot dead. Wyatt takes Curly Bill into custody, fending off both a mob attempting to lynch the cowboy and a handful of his brethren seeking to free him. Curly Bill stands trial, but is found not guilty due to a lack of witnesses. Virgil, unable to tolerate the chaos, becomes the new marshal and imposes a weapons ban within the city limits. All right, this is a long paragraph, and I'm going to stop right there because we've already got that's a lot going on. This is probably one of my favorite scenes of the movie. Just the whole, for starters, I love. We're talking about the inaccuracies of this movie. The amount of shots that people take in this movie is ridiculous. But it starts with wild.
I wasn't even going to say anything about that.
No, this is one of those points where you would actually have a legit, because I sat there and counted how many shots Curly Bill shoots in the street. He shot 22 times with 2 6-shooters. Now, granted, it pans from him in the street to them in the saloon, so I guess he could have reloaded. But he's high as a kite. I have a feeling he didn't. So he shot
how long it takes to
22 times with that. But the thing I want to get to, and I know you guys are going to talk about Wyatt and everything, but Val coming in. This is probably one of my favorite movie quotes of all time. When he comes in and that dude said, "You're so drunk, you're probably seeing double," and he says, "I have 2 guns, one for each of you," and then he twirls the gun. I don't know if y'all noticed this, but he twirls the guns. But he twirls one forwards and one backwards, and he's also holding. He's still holding his drink cup in one of his hands while he's twirling. I mean, every time I rewounded it like 5. Rewounded it. I don't think that's a word.
Rewound.
And yeah, I went back and watched like 5 that quote 5 times and him twirling the guns. It's one of my favorite parts of his character.
I need to go back and watch that because I definitely didn't notice that for starters.
And even before they get out there, you have Doc playing the piano. And he said,
"Oh man,"
he says Frederick effing Chopin. Just while he's playing Camp Town Races. Oh, Susanna. Again, the one-line clips from Doc Holliday and Val Kilmer are just great. But going back to the scene you were talking about, that was a great part for Val Kilmer there. But then also, I think it was right before this, was whenever Ike started shooting his mouth off, and Wyatt put the gun to his forehead and says, "I'll make your head a canoe," And the other guys were like, he's just bluffing. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's telling the truth. No, he's not. Again, that shows the cowardness that Ike has all the time. And so again, shows the great character of Ike, of Wyatt, and of Doc too. It's just it's a good scene.
I also think that this scene though is kind of goes back and shows that Wyatt Earp can't get the officer out of him. He has made it very obvious up to this point that he wants nothing to do with the law. He doesn't want to be an officer. Doesn't want to be a U.S. Marshal. Doesn't want anything to do with it. And then the first time somebody's murdered in front of out there in the streets, and there's no police officer, no marshal to arrest him, he steps up and arrests the guy and takes him to the jail.
But he was fighting it though. He was because the old man comes in and says somebody needs to do something about that, and Wyatt just said, "Let him drink, let him sleep it off. Don't go out there." And the old man's like, "No, somebody's got to do something," because again, Wyatt knew what was going to happen. And
he was definitely fighting it, but in the end, he conceded into it.
Yeah, but he just went in. But again, he still to take care of things he did. But then again, it was Virgil that stepped up in there, afterwards, because again, he still didn't want to be a part of being a sheriff. He was just kind of taking, because the people were wanting to lynch Curly Bill right there, and he said he was gonna be put on trial, and this is where Virgil and then Morgan also. Kind of brought him into it reluctantly all the way until we get to like OK Corral type of thing. Because again, Ike being drunk and getting knocked out by one of the worst gun handle butts to the head by Virgil, and so that kind of leads us into the OK Corral.
Yeah.
It's a later scene that I'm thinking about. No.
So after Virgil initiates the weapons ban within the city limits, this leads to a gunfight at the OK Corral, in which Billy Clanton and the McClory brothers are killed. Virgil and Morgan are wounded, and the allegiance of County Sheriff Johnny Biehn with the Cowboys is made clear. In retaliation for the Cowboys' death, Wyatt's brothers are ambushed. Morgan is killed while Virgil is left handicapped. A despondent Wyatt and his family leave Tombstone and board a train with Ike, Clanton, and Frank Stillwell close behind, preparing to ambush them. Having been appointed a U.S. Marshal, Wyatt sees that his family leaves safely and then surprises the assassins. He kills Stillwell but lets Clanton live to carry a message. He has vowed to put an end to the Cowboys. Wyatt, Doc, a reformed cowboy named Sherman McMasters, Texas Jack Vermillion, and Turkey Creek Jack Johnson form a posse to seek revenge. Man, the nicknames back in the Old West were just better.
I was looking at Texas Jack. Another one of his nicknames is "Shoot Your Eye Out Vermillion." I'm like, yeah, that's awesome.
Turkey Creek Jack Johnson. These are just great names. But no, to go. So we get to the gunfight at the OK Corral, which I feel like, in most movies this would be probably like a climax type thing, because this is obviously a significant historical event.
I definitely thought it was.
Yeah. And also, this is obviously, I think this is a part of the movie where people like to point out a bunch of historical inaccuracies for whatever reason. But of course, we go back to the shooting with the guns. Doc shoots 3 rounds out of a double barrel shotgun, and then I don't know how many rounds they shot without reloading in those pistols. It seemed like a lot.
Let me tell you, it passed all of that. If you want to sit down and count how many shots each of the characters shoot, where are they carrying the ammo? I don't know if y'all know anything about ammo. Ammo is heavy.
Nobody has a bandolier around them to dump it all out.
I mean, it's just it's not there, and they don't even have the belts like with the individual bullet holders in it. Like they don't even have that on them. They don't even show any of that. I think I saw one maybe in the entire movie. So they're not even carrying the ammo to reload into. Like, yeah, it's. But I did go in this movie and say, hey, I knew this movie was going to be like this.
Yeah,
I'm not going to judge it, sucks.
No, and look, the whole shooting, the amount of bullets they shoot without reloading or whatever, it makes me laugh in this movie. But again, it's not supposed to be historically accurate. But the scene is a great scene. It's a great little shootout scene. Did it? We talk about this movie not being historically accurate, and this is kind of pushing ahead. But did it seem to you like Curly Bill and Ringo kind of disappeared halfway through this movie?
Well, I mean, that's why, again, that's why I think. Well, I mean, Curly Bill got killed earlier than I was expecting. Because again, we got the whole entire let's deputize people. Then we got the scene with the actor being killed. And Jason Priestley running off mad. So there was a lot of dead time. Because
I mean, Curly Bill shooting in the town and then shooting the marshal is what starts all this, and then you don't see him again until he steps in to keep Ringo from challenging Doc Holliday. That's the next time, and that's way after the OK Corral, and then that's the next time you see Ringo too, is when he's drunk in the streets.
You don't see a lot. That's the thing. I mean, it's more at that point in time. It's more Virgil and Morgan and Wyatt at that point in time than the Cowboys. So because again, they, like you said, they did disappear, but I don't think they would have had the fight at OK Corral if Ringo and if Curly Bill were there.
And of course, I don't. Obviously they weren't there in real life. They weren't there at that gunfight. So I mean, you obviously don't want them there because you have, like you said. But it is. I was always watching it. Today, actually, is when I watched it. It kind of jumped out at me that they were gone for a while.
Yeah, and it kind of, it kind of hits it, which you would think that the revenge scenes that maybe Ringo would have been involved in one of the revenge scenes, but he wasn't. But he wasn't one of the guys that did the revenge scenes.
Well, we don't. I mean, he could have been, because we don't see what happens to Virgil. He just comes back into the saloon with his arm the way it is.
Was that one? There was the one Hispanic guy, the one that whose English is or Spanish is as bad as his English. He was the one that was peeking around the corner when Virgil came out. So that's why I assumed that was the guy that got.
But you still don't see. I mean, it's off screen what happens to him. And then Morgan gets shot from somebody outside the saloon. You never see who it is that he gets shot by.
It ain't going to be Johnny Ringo. Johnny Ringo wants you to see him shoot you.
Yeah,
it's going to be that was somebody else, just because that's not Johnny Ringo's character.
But
it had to be Ike or somebody.
No, I can't shoot nobody. Ike's that was again. Go back to the OK Corral scene. You know, a couple of good things is one. Doc winking at the guy at Thomas Hayden Church's character, you know, to get this started. Ike just throwing up his hands. I said, I don't have a gun. I'm not armed. And then of course he runs away, you know, grabs a gun, you know, starts shooting. And then my favorite part of the scene is after it's all over and Biehn comes out and says he's going to arrest everybody. And White says, I don't think we'll let you arrest anybody today, Biehn, or whatever. I was like, yep, that's a boss move right there.
Here though is here's one thing though that made me mad. Which I mean, granted, look, I understand that Virgil has just had something to his arm and he's about to lose it, but how are they going to get mad at Wyatt? Wyatt didn't want to be a lawman. He didn't want to have anything to do with this. He wanted to just keep to himself. And even after he finally did become one, he told Virgil not to go to the gunfight at OK Corral. He was like, look, this is not going to end well. We're just going to arrest them on a misdemeanor. He told him that, and Virgil was like, no, they're breaking the law. So everything that's happened is because of Virgil's decision, and now he is getting mad at Wyatt.
Well, did Virgil ever really get mad at Wyatt?
Yeah, when they were in the scene when they're about to cut his arm off. I forget exactly what.
Think maybe that's why he was mad, because
no, I get that's what I said. Questions? I said that. I was like, I understand he's about to lose his arm.
The women seem to be more mad at Wyatt.
The way they paint it though is the way him and his wife too. I forget what she says, but it paints a picture that it's like it's Wyatt's fault that this has happened. When it's all Virgil's fault.
Yeah.
People say what they're really thinking when they're in that much pain like that. That there's no thought process to it.
To me, it was one of those things where I really freaking hurt. Stop asking me what you want me to do. I mean, you're Wyatt Earp, so why? I mean, go do what Wyatt Earp said. That to me was more an irritant than a blame. To me, I think that from Virgil.
Yeah.
Now the women are going to blame Wyatt just because he's the one that's not injured and the one that's not dead. So again, they're gonna blame him. But again, for me, Virgil's was more like, shut up, stop asking me stupid questions. I hurt really, really bad right now. And I got Sawbones Jones over here working on my arm.
I don't know if y'all see this. The whole thing made me think of that. I can't remember what commercial it's for. I don't remember what product's for, but it's a commercial that's out right now. And it's like a guy, an old football player, like when they still wore leather helmets with no face mask. He's like, he has like a knee injury, and the guy's like, "Look, we have to saw his leg off. Like it can't be saved." And then they show like it's like a modern piece of equipment. Look, it's fine. Like we don't really have to saw it off. That was all that could pop in my mind when I was watching this scene. I was like, why is it? Imagine it probably didn't need to be sawed off. But then we get to
the train.
Yeah, we get to the train scene, which is obviously a great scene. We getting to see them ambush him and get his whole vengeance speech that he gets, and then my favorite part is when you get the his posse, I guess you would call it, that kind of shows up. They come in out of the shadows, and you see Sherman McMasters.
McMasters that come in there.
Who's played by what's his name? Rooker? I can't remember. Michael Rooker. He's not like a big time.
He plays a normal guy. and that's not usually Rooker. Rooker's usually playing. He would usually play like a Johnny Ringo or a Val or a Doc Holliday, but he plays kind of a normal guy.
Yeah,
but he's an actor like you. I imagine you recognize him, Dakota, from Guardians of the Galaxy. He plays Yondu. But I've always liked him. But that scene of them together. But again, as you mentioned, Ernie, Ike's managing to sneak away.
But not at least he got a spurt in the face, though. He did get that. So I mean, that was at least something. At least he got some sort of hurt. Mm-hmm. Let's rewind because we got the 2 street scenes. First of all, we have after the deaths of the cowboys, and that's where we get the drunk Johnny Ringo coming out and threatening and says, anybody does anybody ever fight for blood or whatever? And you have Doc say, I'm your Huckleberry. That was one of those things where you're like, ooh, that's goosebump type of things when that came out there. Cause you could see, cause again, sober Doc Holliday is the dangerous one. And he comes out there and he's got his hands just like his fingers tickling the ivories of the guns, just sitting there. He's got the one behind his back, but the other one's just sitting there tapping on his guns like, hey, come on, let's go. And so you have that interaction. And then the opposite, whenever they're taking, when Wyatt's taking everybody to the train, and he tells Curly Bill, said it's over. And then one of my favorite lines from Curly Bill was, "Well, bye." Just like he didn't care. And then Johnny Ringo follows that up with, "Does it smell like something's died?" That was like, man, that's harsh. Both those street scenes after the deaths were poignant for both sides, and I really, that's one of those things that makes me go, man, this is a fantastic movie. I like both those parts, which sets up the vengeance scene at the train station perfectly. And I like the fact that we've gone, bad things happen at night, the Virgil and Morgan's death, and now, hey, you wanted to call down the thunder. Well, here he comes, and it's at night, and just that when he turns his heel with that spur. And you just hear the clinging, the metal of the spur, and then you see the blood come out of Ike's mouth. You're like, golly, here it comes. And that was a beautiful sequence, that I really liked.
Yeah, and especially in his of course his little speech there that calls back to the first, the little, hey, the horseman, death is coming for you and hell's falling behind them, like, of course, I mean, that was a really cool, one of those really cool moments. But I think the thing that really kind of, the dumb wrong, these scenes are great, but after this scene though, they kind of dropped all the women and dropped Virgil, and you don't see him again for the next hour of the movie or 45 minutes or however.
You don't see him again at all.
No. Yeah, like it's just, you get a slight mention of him at the end of the movie, but there's just nothing, which I think goes to prove my point that if you drop the wife and all the women in the movie, like, it doesn't really add that much to it.
So what you're saying is you're a misogynist. You don't want any women in your movie. So what you're saying is the random stagecoach with the sign that says equal pay for equal work regardless of sex that just randomly rolls by in the background of one of the scenes. I don't know if y'all noticed that.
I didn't notice that.
You can't throw misogyny out there. Dakota's the one that picked Moonstruck. So, I mean,
sure did.
Yeah, I mean, if that's any girly movie that we've watched,
he also picked Princess Bride.
Yeah, he picked 10 Things I Hate About You.
Heath Ledger is a hunk. Well, that ain't that's just,
Well, Wyatt and his posse are ambushed in a riverside forest by the cowboys. Wyatt walks into the creek, miraculously surviving the enemy fire, and kills Curly Bill along with many of his men. No. Curly Bill's second in command, Johnny Ringo, becomes the new head of the cowboys. When Doc's health worsens, the group is accommodated by Henry Hooker at his ranch. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and stop because obviously this is a big part where so we get the montage with them hunting down the cowboys, which is obvious. It's quick, but it's fun. You get to see them hunting down these basically no name. I mean, because they don't kill anybody that you know. It's just a bunch of people wearing red sashes. So when we get to the creek scene, I don't know if this is like thrown together because it's like we realize the climax has to be Ringo and Doc Holliday, but and I will say, as I was going into it, because it's been a while since I've seen this, I remember thinking as we were getting ready, I was like, oh, here's when Curly Bill just kind of dies randomly. And I walked back on that a little bit because I was like, okay, there was more of because I forgot that he actually like comes out into the creek and they do that whole thing. So it wasn't as randomly as I thought. Obviously, he's not the final boss, I guess, in this, but it's so I don't. This has to be if you're. This is one of those scenes where you tell me Kurt Russell directed this himself. Really, I would believe it because it's like, what sense does this make? He just randomly walks out and he's just not getting shot, and we're just like, okay.
Yeah. Emphasis on miraculous, and that,
I mean, it makes for great action and it's fun to watch, but yes, it is miraculous to say the least.
Which I think, I mean, I think that this is based on lore of this actually happening. So yeah, I think it is. So that's the thing. That's the crazy thing about it is I think this now whether again it's the West. So I don't think this is necessarily.
Yeah, I feel like this is a tale that got taller as more of it was retold.
But I mean, again, if you're telling a story about Wyatt Earp and the Cowboys, this is because I think he did kill Curly Bill in the river. I think, but now did he have crossfire? Did every single bullet's miss him from like point blank range? I don't know, but again, you see his anger coming out, and then again, Doc Holliday. Following up, where's Wyatt? He's somewhere walking on water, and then the next line, when he's coughing up blood, and I believe it was Turkey Creek or whatever Johnson or whatever his name is. I can't remember which one it was. Asked him, he said, "Why is he doing this?" And he says, "Wyatt's my friend." And this guy said, "I got plenty of friends," and that's when Doc comes up and says, "I don't." That's why he's found. He doesn't have any friends, but Wyatt's loyal to him, and he's going to be definitely loyal to Wyatt. And again, that's another great way that Val Kilmer played this part, I thought.
So, interesting point that I guess I just not thought about, and I just not remembered. Me and Kamei were talking about this watching the movie. Isn't tuberculosis like highly contagious?
I don't think so. Is it?
I don't know. I'd hate to sit there and lie. I mean,
it's kind of what I was thinking was, is with tuberculosis being, I mean, a pretty serious disease. It is a highly contagious infection, is what the Google is saying. So
the Google.
Well, he did cover his mouth a lot, so I mean,
Yeah, I mean that saves it. All the Germax, really killed all the germs. But I guess I mean I understand that he needed to have some form of a disease, but I just feel like a highly infectious disease that.
No, he really had tuberculosis. That's not made up.
Okay. Well, I mean, still though, like. I don't know. It doesn't make sense why he would be.
Why didn't other people, like especially his girlfriend, why didn't she get it?
Yeah, like it's just he has tuberculosis.
I don't know.
Nobody else in the movie gets tuberculosis.
But he had it. I mean, he had it. Yeah. He died of it. But he also, I mean, he did go on this famous, I don't know what you call it, this ambush vengeance run with Kurt Russell. So I mean, this all really did happen.
I mean, I'm not feuding that, but it's just.
And why didn't anybody else get it? If it's that contagious, why didn't anybody else get it?
Yeah,
I understand that. That's why we have vaccinations for that and measles. So that's. But it is kind of curious. Like his girlfriend, because they shared more than air with each other. You would figure that that she would have got it too. She would have been Lunger, as he was called, I believe.
Yeah,
six times, and at least 6 times in the movies, he was called Lunger. I was like, golly, man, that's like calling me fat and bald.
What's such an insensitive thing to call somebody with a deadly disease like that?
Which, again, if anybody didn't care, it would have been Doc Holliday didn't care.
Well, Ringo lures McMasters into the Cowboys' clutches under the pretense of parlay and then sends a message dragging McMasters' corpse to tell Wyatt that he wants a showdown to end the hostilities. Wyatt agrees. Wyatt sets off for the showdown, not knowing that Doc has already arrived at the scene. Doc confronts a surprised Ringo, who is expecting Wyatt, and challenges him to a duel to finish their game, which Ringo accepts. Doc and Ringo have already had a couple of standoffs in Tombstone that were ultimately broken up. That part was in parentheses. Wyatt runs when he hears a gunshot, only to encounter Doc, who has killed Ringo. So obviously, this is the part that everybody's kind of been looking forward to. We get Doc playing possum or chicken a little bit with his health, although he really is dying. But he does the whole thing. He's like, I wasn't quite as sick as I made out. But this is the iconic. You know, you get Johnny Ringo standing there, and he hears the leaves crunching, and he looks, and he's like, "Oh well." And then you get Val Kilmer coming in. It's dark, and then the sun reveals that it's him and not Kurt Russell, and then just that iconic "I'm your Huckleberry," which I know it's not the first time that he says it, but I think when people think of him saying that line, that's the part that they remember him saying it at. No. And then just that look on Ringo's face when he realizes it's Doc Holliday and not Wyatt Earp is just it's great.
Yeah, I liked when you had Wyatt and Doc at Henry Hooker's ranch, and Doc's in the bed, and you know they go through the whole entire speech of why Wyatt couldn't defeat Johnny Ringo, and then he asked Doc, you know, well, why does a person do this, you know? And you see Doc explaining, I guess it sounds like his thoughts not only on Johnny Ringo but on himself when he starts talking about that it's revenge for being born, you know, like he knows that Doc Holliday is a mess up or a screw up, and so that's part of the reason why he does some things. And the same thing with Johnny Ringo, you know, which again, that's the whole entire thing of setting this up, because you think Wyatt's going to go. Wyatt's not going to back down from this, you know, and that reveal, you know, when he pulls his head up, and like you said, it's dark, but when he pulls that head up and you just see Doc and the I'm your Huckleberry. It's just like, again, that's another one of those goosebumps, because again, every time that Biehn and Kilmer are on the screen with each other, it's solid gold.
Yeah, I had no idea about this interaction. I didn't know a lot about this movie to begin with. Prior to watching this, didn't know it was about Wyatt Earp or Doc Holliday or anything about this movie. So definitely that reveal definitely surprised me a lot. It really got me, because I genuinely thought that Doc Holliday was in a bed back on a ranch somewhere, you know.
It's just done so well. Just seeing him come out of those shadows in his face, kind of appear with that "I'm your Huckleberry" line. It's just, and then you get the look. I mean, they do it about as good as you can, because you know, a gunfight shootout like this is 1-on-1. I mean, it only ends one way. One's going to shoot the other, one bullet, it's going to be over with. So it's not. There's not a ton that you can do, but they make it work well. It's very suspenseful, and I love just the little things, like when Doc shoots, when Doc shoots him and you see him like twirl his gun like that and put it back in his holster, like just little things like that make the character. And I still don't know what "You're No Daisy" means, but it's a great, as he's standing there dying, falling forward, he's like, "You're no Daisy. You're no Daisy at all." It's fantastic.
I think he said that at the OK Corral too, when the guy said he ran out of bullets or whatever. He said that too. I need to look that up, what that means.
But he also said
something about he was going to shoot him. He's like, "You're a daisy if you do."
Yeah.
But he also said in the beginning, though, when he was playing cards, and he
says it throughout the whole movie. I don't know what it means.
Oh, that's a daisy. Yeah, like I had no idea.
He says it a lot.
Because the first time he said it was when he was playing cards, so I assumed it was like a really good suit or something. I don't know.
So again,
or a winning hand.
This scene, Doc Hollywood, good gravy. You can tell it's late. Doc Holliday with 3 great lines. 1, I'm your Huckleberry. 2, when he tells Ringo, well, you look like somebody walked over your grave, and then the last one, whenever Wyatt showed up and he was just sitting there, he said, I'm afraid the strain was just more than he could bear. That's that again. Golly.
Oh, what about when Ringo falls dead and he's like, poor soul, you were just too high strung.
So then whatever he said, my hypocrisy only runs so deep or whatever, when he throws the badge down too. Again, if this isn't one of the most memorable movie characters, I don't know what is.
Well, after that, they press on to complete their task of eliminating the Cowboys, although Clanton escapes their vengeance by renouncing his red sash, which is a great scene. Him being like, look, and he throws it in the air. But Doc is sent to a sanatorium in Colorado, where he dies of his illness. At Doc's urging, Wyatt pursues Josephine to begin a new life. The final narration mentions that the Cowboy gang was destroyed forever. Clanton was shot and killed in an attempted robbery. Maddie died of a drug overdose shortly after leaving Tombstone, and Virgil and Elliott moved to California, where Virgil, despite only having one arm, still had a long career as a lawman. While Wyatt and Josephine would stay together for 47 years until Wyatt's death in Los Angeles in 1929. And among the pallbearers at his funeral were William S. Hart and Tom Mix. And this is one of my favorite parts because this is so random that they include it. The latter of whom, Tom Mix, wept. It's so random that they put that in the movie. Like, okay, that's a good little... I'm glad you let us know that.
All right, buddy.
But to go back all the way to the beginning to what you said, Ernie, the true, and I kind of wish the movie ended here, because the true relationship of the movie is Doc and Wyatt. And so seeing them together, and you kind of get the thing, where it's Doc's kind of like, look, you need to forget me and move on and go live your life. And Wyatt's not one to give him up. He's trying to play cards with him and everything. But it's a great finish. It would have been a great finish to the movie, and it's not that big a deal. I mean, sure, he goes to Josephine. It is what it is. I don't care that much about it, but it's fine. But if they ended the movie here, I think it would have been great.
Yeah, I got a little misty at this whenever Doc is telling them, if you loved me at all, you'll leave right now, after telling him the story about having an affair with his 15-year-old cousin, and then she went to the convent. I was like, oh, okay, that's good. That's good rando information. I appreciate that. Nothing like a little incestuous relationship to end the movie on. So yeehaw, thank you, appreciate that. But yeah, just the relationship that you see built up throughout the movie, and to end in the sanatorium, with Doc being as emotional, because he's showed no emotion at all this whole entire time, but being emotional because he does care about Wyatt. He doesn't want Wyatt to see him like this, and then the love that Wyatt had for actually leaving him, and letting him die with some dignity. That was very, very, I enjoyed this scene.
And I did like that they added, which for a movie that doesn't have a ton of historical accuracy, it has plenty of historical inaccuracies. They did add the part where he looks at his feet and he said, "Huh, that's funny," and that's basically a callback to actually how he died. And he said that because he had always said he always thought he was going to die with his boots on. So he was looking at his bare feet and was like, "That's funny," he's dying without his boots on. So I did like that little callback there.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I figured you were going to have that question because they didn't really explain it, which, I mean, I guess there's really not a way they could have explained that. But, so I figured you were going to have that question.
Yeah, we had no idea about that. Kamei had asked me about it, and I was just like, yeah.
And we're like, what's funny? It's like that meme the conspiracy meme where he's got all the things on the board. He's like, what? Dakota Kamei trying to figure out what's funny.
It was more of a Kamei was like, yeah, I don't get it. What's funny? And that was it. I had no idea, you know.
All right, so you can tell we like this movie because we were an hour and 13 minutes in, and we are just now getting to rankings. So before we jump over to those rankings, do you guys have anything else you want to add?
No, again, Val Kilmer
Anybody?
was robbed. Val Kilmer was robbed, absolutely robbed of the Academy Award nomination.
I agree.
Yeah.
But all right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the rankings. I'll go first. So this movie, again, I mentioned it earlier. This is just one of many westerns that seem to have come out in the 90s. But to me, this, and again, I'm not a huge western guy, but from the ones I have seen, this kind of stands out among the others. And obviously, look, it's not all historically accurate for a movie that does take place about, all these historically real people. But I mean, it's just a great movie and it's fun. But I think, I look at it, if this movie didn't have Val Kilmer, I think it's still an 8.5 to an 8.75, or between an 8.5 and a 9. I think it's still a good movie because it has a great cast and it's a lot of fun. But the addition of Val Kilmer just elevates it to a whole other level. I mean, he owns the screen every time he's on it. There's so many memorable things about this movie that you just remember. And again, like we said multiple times, the character he plays, it is a shame that he did not even get nominated for an Academy Award because he definitely deserved it. This is a fantastic performance. And like I said, without him, I probably would still give it between 8.5 and a 9. But with him, I'm going to give it a 9.5. And that may be a little high. I don't know. I guess we'll find out with y'all scores. But I love his performance that much.
I find that very interesting that you say without Val Kilmer, you would still have it at about an 8.5.
Well, that's with me saying if you have somebody else playing Doc Holliday. Yeah, if you had somebody else playing, like they could go find another good actor to play Doc Holliday, and he probably would have done a good job. And I think it would still been a good movie.
Yeah, like Willem Dafoe was rumored to have that.
Yeah, I think he would have done a good job at it. But nobody could do what Val Kilmer did in this movie. There's not anybody on earth that they could have picked.
But I do find it interesting that I don't, without Val Kilmer, I don't have it as high as what you would have. Now, again, it was still a pretty good movie, but I don't know if it's as great of a movie without Val Kilmer in it. If you do put Willem Dafoe in it, because again, the chemistry between Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer, the chemistry between Michael Biehn and Val Kilmer, and even Val Kilmer with Sam Elliott and Bill Paxton, who I was sorely disappointed in both of them in this. He had chemistry with everybody. So again, without them, I was probably going to be around, I would think around the 8. But for me, again, this was it was an excellent movie. Val Kilmer was absolutely incredible. Kurt Russell was really, really, really good. Time and some just wasted effort in other parts of the movie kind of brings it down a little bit for me. But I still give it a 9.
Yeah. So
I remember Dakota. Hold on. Let's stay right here. This is your mother's favorite movie, so you better think twice before you score. I'm just saying. Mother's Day is coming up.
Like Caleb in Halloween and all that other kind of stuff. No, don't get pressured.
Don't listen to him. I don't pressure you into nothing. I'm just saying.
So listen to him instead.
I'm just saying. You think of your mama when you. I'm look.
Your mother's love is not based on your rating for Tombstone.
It might be. It might be.
I promise you, my mama's probably not going to know what I rated this podcast. Rated this movie. Okay.
She is not one of our 5 subscribers.
She is not one of them. Okay.
Dakota, go ahead with your score.
I do. So I did really enjoy this movie. Like I mentioned at the beginning of it, the only really big complaint I had about it was that it was slow, and there was some unnecessary scenes in it, and I feel like it, especially the shootout at the OK Corral. maybe it to me made it feel like it was closer to the end than it was, and then maybe it built up a little bit too quickly right there in the end, and it was just the I guess the what's the word that I'm looking for here? Like kind of like the timing of the movie, I guess, or the flow of the movie just wasn't really. Yeah, it wasn't there all the way for me. However, the actors and y'all mentioned this before, they were great. You know, I personally, Kurt Russell's character Wyatt Earp was by far my favorite, and I know we've talked so much about Val Kilmer and everything, but I love Kurt Russell's character. I love it when he brought the intensity. I love when he was, you know, when he saw some of that softer side of him. When, you know, I think Kurt Russell to me was really the person that's kind of stood out the most, at least to me. And not saying that, you know, Val Kilmer or any of the other actors didn't do a phenomenal job in their roles. It's just I think Kurt Russell's role stood out to me, and you know, but ultimately I really did enjoy the movie, and I think coming out of it, I was going to give it an 8.5, but because it is my mother's favorite movie, I'm going to give it an 8.75.
Don't sit there and collapse like that.
No, I'm going to give it my mama's.
You severely overestimate the influence that I have on Dakota.
Yeah,
by a wide mile.
I don't think you realize that I'm pretty well stubborn and going to do what I want to do.
No, I just figure sometimes, you know, that fly just sits there and bothers you over and over and over and over again. Sometimes you'll just let the fly land on you. So, you know.
All right, so a 9.5 from me, a 9 from Ernie, and an 8.75 from Dakota. That averages out to a 9.08. Ernie, where does that put us on our rankings?
That ties for fourth with Back to the Future and Halloween.
I think
it is also
I think
movie, so.
I think, yeah, so this is the first one we've had in a while, I think. So for anybody listening for the first time, any movie that we have that's ranked on average, our 3 scores together is averaged a 9 or higher. We consider that a certified blockbuster. So I don't know the last one. I feel like this is the first one we've had in a while. It's interesting you say it's tied with Back to the Future and Halloween, which I believe are also movies that I gave 9.5s.
Die Hard was the last one that we had, which was
Christmas.
Which was Christmas, because it's a Christmas movie.
All right. So all right. So tied for fourth on our list. If you would like to see that full rankings list, you can go to our website. It's podpage.com/classicblockbusters. That's podpage.com/classicblockbusters. You can go on there and find our full rankings list as well as our episodes and some other stuff. You can also find us on Facebook. It's Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. And I'm also now pleased to say that today, actually, before we recorded this, we reached 1,000 downloads on. So that was across Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That does not include YouTube, but so we reached 1,000 downloads. So we appreciate everybody that's listening to us. Me and Dakota actually we talked to someone Monday night who told us he listens to every single episode. Even though he said he has not seen most of the movies we've done, he still listens to the podcast. So we appreciate that.
And he's not family related either.
No, he's not. Not family related. Might be the first one. But yeah, so we appreciate everybody that I don't know what episode we're on, but I feel like we've gone a lot farther than we thought when we started this, especially when we added Ernie. I thought that was the death nail in the coffin right there.
Oh,
here we are.
Right there.
Here we are,
38.
38 episodes later.
Yep.
Hey, let me tell you, we have been pretty consistent with our listens. We've averaged around 25 to 30 listens per episode. And I think I think even back going all the way to like the 10th to 15th episode when we were averaging about that same amount, you know. So y'all are some pretty steady and consistent listeners, and we really appreciate that.
I mean, yeah, we do. Honestly. I mean, our first episodes have a little bit higher numbers, but for the most part, like Dakota said, we really average between 20 and 30 an episode.
Yeah.
So that's a lot better than I think we thought we were going to do. So we appreciate that.
It's about 20 to 30 more than we thought.
And all right, so next week it is Ernie's pick and he has a decision to make. He sent us a list today of 20 movies.
It was 14, not 20.
Oh,
so,
oh, that's still more than I thought it was. I thought it was like 9. Yeah, he sent us a list of 14 movies today, and he's like, I'm having a tough decision. I'm sitting there like, okay, you got to narrow that down.
I'm literally looking at the movies. You can't see that, but I'm looking at the list of movies right now.
What are you gonna do? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo?
Stall for a minute.
Hey, I have a list.
No, I'm not. No more stalling. No more stalling because.
All right, so it is baseball season. We're going to go with Bull Durham.
Bull Durham. You know, y'all should be thankful because I almost thought my last pick, because it was baseball season and we hadn't done a sequel. Oh, I already said that we were going to do Major League 2. I already did that joke last week.
Yeah.
But it's not as bad as Ernie says it is. But anyways, all right. So baseball season, we're doing Bull Durham next week. So that's a Kevin Costner movie. So obviously, gonna be a good one. And anything else to add?
I'll tell you what. At the wedding scene, Nino Brown would have mowed all those cats down that were coming after them. All the Cowboys would have been dead right there.
I don't even have the camera pulled up, and I just heard the sigh.
So that's a fare you well, and we'll see you at the movies next time.